Are college football coaches that irreplaceable? It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. And quick reminder, we are part of the #1 sports podcast network in Locked On. We thank everybody for tuning in. All right, we'll get to JMU not ranked in the college football playoff rankings by the committee, and we'll do an early week 13 preview. But it's my only outlet to talk about this. I'm going to vent for a little bit because it appears we're doing the same thing over and over again, right? And I think that it's my belief is that very, very few people are irreplaceable. And we're talking college football coaches. We're talking Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, pro football. Seems everybody else is pretty much replaceable, right? You want to talk broadcasting, Howard Stern. There's not another Howard Stern coming in there. And then, there's, you can talk about the players and things like that. Springsteen, musicians. Almost everybody is replaceable. Almost. All right. And yet, LSU is about to do the same thing that they just did with Brian Kelly, except 35% higher. And so they're going to offer Lane Kiffin $13.5 million. Because how many playoff games has he won so far? Goose egg. None. Now, they're going to be in it this year, it would appear. But I do find that fascinating. I mean, right now, can you name all? I'm not going to tell you how many. Do you know how many college coaches have currently won a national championship game? Active college coaches. All right. It's not on two hands. There are 3 active college coaches that have won national championships. That's it. Can you name them? Obviously, you got the current one, Ryan Day. Been a little bit since Dabo Swinney's done it. And obviously, Kirby Smart. That used to be a trick question back in the day. Everyone forgot about Mac Brown, but he's not coaching anymore. So there's 3. Everybody else is trying to get there. Harbaugh's in the pros. He's not around. So there's a grand total of 3 active college coaches that have won national championships. And I would tell you, I think a lot of people could do what Ryan Day is doing. I'm not sure he's that great a coach. Ohio State fans don't think he's that great a coach. And JMU is the great example of that, right? Think what JMU has done. They took an FCS coach. I think maybe it was the Division III coach, Kurt Signetti, and they hired him. And he's gone to Indiana and has had great success. They took another FCS coach, which I guess with the FCS, they probably knew who Bob Chesney was. I knew who Bob Chesney was only because he was rumored to go to Syracuse. And you know why they didn't take him to Syracuse? Because the money people there didn't want an FCS coach. So, of course, they took a position coach. They didn't even take a coordinator. They took a position coach, which this year hasn't gone that well. Last year went very well. So we'll see what happens when they have a healthy quarterback. And usually that's where it starts and finishes. The healthy quarterback, right? Like this year, Brian Kelly got let go because the quarterback was not healthy and did not play well. Now, that has to do with his offensive line not protecting the quarterback because the defense for LSU is pretty good. All right, they fixed that problem. That was a problem when Jane Daniels was the quarterback. That's why they didn't win a national championship when he had a great college football season because their defense was one of the worst in the nation. Defense is now pretty good. Offense can't move the ball. Billy Napier, right? Reason he was so successful, we've been over this plenty over the last few years. The reason he was so successful with the Cajuns, one quarterback started every game for the final 3 seasons of his Cajuns tenure. All right. They have issues finding quarterbacks in Florida. He couldn't settle on one. All right. What about Auburn now? Auburn can't even figure out who the quarterback is this weekend. Meanwhile, who the quarterback's been since Bo Nix left. And now you're on your third coach since Bo Nix started college at Auburn. And so that's usually where it starts and finishes with the quarterback. Once you find the quarterback, you're in good shape. Dan Lanning, right, has gone from quarterback, right? He's gone from Herbert to Nix to Moore. There you go. So that's a big help. All right. Also, obviously, I think Dan Lanning is a good coach. All right. We want to put him in the irreplaceable, but he was the number 1 seed last year and he didn't win anything. Right? They got beat. No. So it is amazing to me that we're doing the same thing over and over again. All right. I'm not the biggest fan of Jeff Landry, but he's not wrong when he says these contracts for these college coaches are ridiculous. But here's the problem. So LSU is paying Brian Kelly $10 million. They're going to tell Lane Kiffin, we're going to give you $15 million, but when we let you, we're going to give you more than you want, but it's only going to be while you're here. We're not guaranteeing it. When we fire you, we'll give you a little severance, but you're not getting the rest of the contract. All right. Stupid way to put that, but you understand what I'm saying. Whereas Florida's going to say, nope, we'll guarantee it all. Just takes one. Just takes one other school to do it. How can you blame Lane Kiffin for that? In fact, I would take less to have everything guaranteed, just in case, rather than make a couple more million. And so it is amazing that this continues to happen. I just don't think these college coaches are irreplaceable. All right. I mean, Indiana they gave Curt Cignetti not 1, but 2 races. Hasn't even finished the second season. I think he's gone from what's he gone from $4 or $5 million to $11.5? They think he's irreplaceable. But I don't think so. I think there are very few people in this world that are irreplaceable. As someone who's been replaced, although I don't think by people that are better than me, but that's I'm all going to be a homer to myself, obviously. But so I just don't think if these coaches, if a good coach leaves, like Bob Chesney, and you're going to find, JMU is going to be a hot job because obviously that is the stepping stone to a Power 4 job, right? Think what Bob Chesney had done. I don't even know if Bob Chesney was making $250,000 at Holy Cross, right? I think he's making pretty good high 6, maybe low 7 figures now. And he's going to make about 5 times that if he ends up with that Penn State job. It doesn't seem like this endless supply of money is ever going to end. All right? And maybe someone's going to take a stand, but, not to bring politics into this, but if LSU doesn't get Lane Kiffin, and they are a mid-SEC team, you can mess up politics all you want in Louisiana. You mess with their football team, he may not get reelected, Jeff Landry. Now, if they get Lane Kiffin, no one's going to care how much you're paying as long as he wins. And he'll probably have them in the college football playoff, but we'll see. They got to start all over again next year. We'll see who the quarterback is. Does he bring the Ole Miss team with him? I don't know. But I just wanted to vent a little bit. Let me know what you think, because I don't think 99% of these guys are irreplaceable. All right. I really don't. I want somebody who would want to be at my school, want to build a program. I'll stick by you as long as I can. Places turned ugly fast. Penn State turned ugly fast. LSU turned ugly fast. I'll do what I can to stay by you, but I can't pay your salary for 4 years when you're not coaching. We'll see. We'll see if that ever changes. I don't know, but I just don't need to get locked on. No pun intended, I guess. One person. Whereas, do we think there's going to be a big difference between Brent Key, John Sumrall, Kenny Dillingham? Is there a huge delineation between those three? Brent Key's got Haynes King. He's been playing college quarterback for about a decade. So I'm not sure there's a huge difference between these coaches. We'll see. Obviously, I like John Summerall, but I'm not sure. Kenny Dillingham's done a good job, and Brent Key's done a good job. I'm not sure if you ended up with one of those, you'd be doing pretty well. But I'm not sure one is that much better than another, right? And I mean, LSU just had the all-time Notre Dame winningest football coach, and it did not work out. No one thought that at the time, although a few things would appear it was not a good fit. But again, I think I think Mike Desimo with the Cajuns is just a perfect fit. All right, hasn't gone well, hasn't been able to keep that quarterback healthy. But I think you ride that one until it's completely fallen apart. And if they win this ball game Thursday against Arkansas State, they got ULM at home to go to a bowl game. That's a great coaching job. So that's my 2 cents. See what you guys think. Do you think your coach is irreplaceable? I don't think so. Let me know what you guys think. I just used Chesney as that seems to be this biggest rumor out there that he's going somewhere. I don't know he's going anywhere. They're talking about UCLA, which also doesn't seem to be a good fit, but that's just I think Bob Chesney's a really good coach. JMU could find the next Kurt Signetti and the next Bob Chesney, is what I'm saying. All right, let's talk about JMU not getting ranked by the College Football Playoff Committee right after I tell you about FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Thank you for making us making Locked On the number one sports podcast network out there. Really do appreciate it. Okay, so waited till after 8:30 Eastern time. Thank you, ESPN and Kentucky and Michigan State, for those rankings to come out at about 8:45 on Tuesday night. And JMU did not make it. Brain freeze. Tulane was the highest ranked school, and they were 24th. They were the highest ranked. What do we call them? G6 and G4 now. So they were 24th. Okay. And they do have some better wins than JMU. They have an awful loss at UTSA, and they did get blown out by Ole Miss. All right. And interestingly, on a different subject, all right, because you could catch these guys. Of course, Hunter Yurchak being the committee chair is hilarious. They don't even like him in Fayetteville. Meanwhile, making him, committee chair. They were comparing Notre Dame's and Miami's losses. All right. And big fan of the Lebitard show. Mike Ryan's been going nuts all week because Notre Dame gets credit for losing to Miami, but Miami gets no credit for beating Notre Dame. Okay. So they're comparing losses because Notre Dame's losses to Miami and A&M are better than the losses that Miami has in Louisville and SMU. Not bad losses, but the other losses are better losses. Okay. Now, what if you turn it around for Tulane and JMU? Because JMU doesn't have any bad losses. Tulane's got a bad loss, right? Tulane lost to Ole Miss, got blown out, and they lost to UTSA. That's a bad loss. Why doesn't that count? They've beaten Duke, which is not quite as impressive as it may have been. And they beat Memphis, which is okay. But that's really about it. You're going to tell me they beat Northwestern, who's a mid Big Ten team. But that's, as it turns out, more than JMU has, unfortunately. But you can catch these guys, almost set them up, right? Reese could have said, all right, why is Tulane's got 2 losses? One of them is a bad loss to UTSA. Why are they ranked and JMU is not? Well, they got a tougher schedule. They have some nice wins. You go back the other way. All right, so Miami beat Notre Dame. Why isn't Miami ahead of Notre Dame? Because you're crediting Notre Dame for losing to Miami, but not Miami beating Notre Dame. So it is what it is right now. I don't think it's etched in stone, although they said if Tulane wins out, Jerry Smith, a beat writer for NOLA.com, covering Tulane, if Tulane wins out, they will host the American Championship ball game. And I mean, are you rooting for Tulane or UNT at that point in time? Because if Tulane wins, they're not going to fall out. And UNT's only got the 1 loss. So are you rooting for UNT to win? And would UNT jump into those rankings because they beat a ranked Tulane? And that's the thing. We'll see. It may be a good thing that JMU did not get game day, because the last time they got game day was at maybe App State. Was it App State? They lost. They got focused on the game day thing, which is cool and all get out, but they lost. And you need to focus on beating this Washington State team. And of course, UNT did beat Washington State, beat them 59-10. We'll see if you could do that. I don't know anything about Washington State. The only thing I know about Washington State is they got a flag during game day. That's it. Andrew Bledsoe. That's about it. So they're not ranked right now. You're going to have some big wins. Be nice if Coastal beat South Carolina. That could help. And then if you go and beat Coastal on the road, if you have 3 blowout wins heading into the Sun Belt Championship game, it can't hurt, right? And they may have to do that. The problem is you start making decisions looking at the big picture instead of trying to win the football game. And we may go for it on 4th and 2 on our own 44-yard line, whereas normally we may not, because we're trying to get some big points. We'll see how that works out. But JMU not ranked, despite computer rankings liking them. The Tulane, we went over that yesterday. Tulane's got a tougher schedule than JMU. UNT does not. North Texas does not. We'll see how this works out. But not looking great right now. But you look at those rankings, on November 19th, and we'll see what it looks like in a few weeks, because it could be very, very different in a few weeks. We're bound to get some upsets. Again, A&M and Georgia Tech barely won this past weekend. Georgia Tech would be way out of the possibility, and A&M would have fallen dramatically. Now, they won, but I'm a big believer that we always seem to get a big shakeup somewhere along the way. So we'll see how that works out. But right now, Tulane 24, JMU not ranked. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll do an early Week 13 preview as the Cajuns in Arkansas State kicking it off, pun intended, on national TV on Thursday. We'll do that right after I tell you about Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually, getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. We'll wrap the show up with a little, we'll tell you about the finals, basketball-wise, that happened on Tuesday. I won't give away scores that are still ongoing because that'll be over. It'll be done with by the time you see this. All right, so week 13, and I have that correct. Kicks off Arkansas State hosting the Cajuns. Arkansas State is just, oddly enough, only a 2.5-point favorite. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Is that right? Because that's not very much. In fact, it started off as Arkansas State a 3.5-point favorite. The Cajuns have a long list of players that are out. Besides the guys that are, besides the ones that are suspended, there's a long list of players that are out. Isaiah Alexander, offensive lineman. Notori Brown, outside linebacker. George Jackson, he's been out. Offensive lineman. Jamarian Gooch, offensive lineman. Carter Millian, special teams. Jacoby Isom, offensive lineman. Lester Jones, outside linebacker. Colin Jacob, defensive back. Xavier Brown, offensive lineman. Tyree Skipper, suspended. Cortland Flowers, defensive backs, suspended. Cody Jackson, defensive back, suspended. Caleb Edwards, inside linebacker, out. Evan Stroman, wide receiver, out. D'Antonio LeSueur, defensive lineman, out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then you have a bunch of guys questionable. Goodness gracious. That is, that's going to be a lot to overcome. All right. We'll see. You got a couple extra days because you didn't play this week, right? And so you had about 12 days to get ready for this. We'll see. And we also said that benefited Arkansas State so they could get over that loss against Southern Miss. So, I mean, I think the odds are stacked against the Cajuns. If the Cajuns go in with a, not only banged up, but suspended football team and somehow escape Jonesboro with a victory, that is a huge deal there. And Arkansas State's playing for a bowl game. They got 2 games left to qualify for a bowl game. So that is a big ball game for them as well. That is 7:30 on Thursday night on ESPN. All right. South Alabama hosting Southern Miss. Southern Miss, it was a pick 'em. Southern Miss is just a 1.5-point favorite. What is going on with some of these lines? Charles Huff did mention that he thinks Braylon Braxton is going to play, or said, I think the quote was, he's more comfortable with him playing. They would know more they would know more later on in the week. I'm going to quote Dima Dixon. Southern Miss head coach Charles Huff says he feels better about Braylon playing on Saturday at South Alabama, but they will have a better answer after tonight in practice. So that was on Tuesday. All right. So Dima Dixon covers him for the Pine Belt News. All right, he does a great job over there. Okay. I can't imagine that's a 1.5-point game. That is crazy. That makes no sense to me. You would think that Southern Miss would be, maybe they're just waiting to find out about the quarterback. You would think Southern Miss would be about a 7-point favorite on the road. Honestly. South Alabama played like a good game for like a half against ULM. So we shall see how that works out. That is a surprising line. This is that's 3:30 Eastern time on ESPN Plus. This is not surprising. JMU 13.5 point spread over Washington State. Again, not knowing anything about Washington State, did mention North Texas hammered them in Denton. They lost to Washington 59-24. They almost beat Ole Miss. They had a couple close losses, 24-21 to Ole Miss, 22-20 to Virginia. They also lost to Oregon State 10-7. So it's very interesting on how what's going on with Washington State and Oregon. You know, they are two teams without a conference right now. It's not great, Bob. All right. Then you have Georgia Southern hosting Old Dominion. All right. Old Dominion bounced back very nicely last weekend against Troy. Georgia Southern all of a sudden has joined the 2025 college football season. ODU is an 11.5 point favorite over Georgia Southern. I would take the over in this one, and I'm probably going to take Georgia Southern to cover, but ODU to win. All right, we'll do more about that later. I know I did not take the first two ball games. I'm going to think about those a little bit. Marshall taking on App State. App State needs to win their final two to get in. Marshall, 4.5 point favorites. App State seems to be spiraling. We would take Marshall in this ball game. Troy has a chance to get right. They're hosting Georgia State. Troy 6-4. Georgia State 1-9. Troy an 11.5 point favorite. Of course, if you are Georgia State, you're saying the same thing. We got a chance to get a win here because Troy has not looked good the last 2 weeks, offensively anyway. And so let's see what happens there. I would still take Troy. Although I would take Troy in that ball game. South Carolina is a 23.5 point favorite over Coastal Carolina. All right, this is a team that just blew a 30-3 lead and got shut out in the second half by A&M. Coastal is going to be playing their second. Tad Hudson's going to be playing. No, Samari Collier. So we'll see how Coastal does. And Coastal's defense was awful, right? You could take the over in this one as well. Coastal defense was awful against Georgia Southern. It was a no-show. That was a big deal. So we'll see. That is on the SEC network. That is 4:15 Eastern time. And Texas State still has a shot to go bowling. They're 18.5 point favorites over ULM. I think they're going to cover that one. They got Monroe and South Alabama at home. Texas State could very well, with a 5-game losing streak during the season, end up going to a bowl game. Came up with a big win against Southern Miss. The schedule's not that difficult. They got Monroe and then South Alabama. Maybe South Alabama found something. But again, South Alabama, one of those teams that just has not mailed it in. That's got to be a reflection on Major Applewhite. Winning is one thing. I understand that, and that's the goal. But you can see some teams when they quit. You saw that, I guess, Alabama against Florida State. People were watching that film like, what's going on? We'll see. I mean, South Alabama, 5-7, a lot better than 3-9, right? Although not much. At least it gives you hope. And again, they've been in most of the football games. They have a bad stretch, all right, one way or the other. All right, we'll see what happens moving forward. All right, let's wrap it up here with a little Sunbelt college basketball. And the big ball game, one of the big ball games tonight was James Madison having all kinds of issues with Towson the last few years. James Madison beats Towson 81-75. Nice. That was in Harrisonburg. And so that's a big, nice win for JMU, who has struggled here of late. They had not getting a whole lot of help from the bench, 4 points from the bench, but they had Bradley Douglas, formerly of Georgia Southern, right? Scored 22. Justin McBride had 21. Cliff Davis and Eddie Ricks III each had 14. So they had 4 out of the 5 starters scoring double figures. Here's going to be the only problem, and it's just starting. I get it. We got a long way to go. 4 of the 5 starters played 30 minutes. Eddie Ricks III played 36. Justin McBride played 30. Douglas played 32. Cliff Davis played 10. All right. So when the games start to go from Thursday to Saturday, that could be a tough recovery for JMU. Just a thought. All right. That's what stuck out to me in that one. Nice win. Not taking anything away from the win, but just pointing out the minutes played. Texas State's playing Abilene Christian. We won't give that score away. And Xavier downs Old Dominion handily 99-69. So an easy win for Xavier over the Monarchs. You do have the Cajuns out west playing Stanford. Troy is out west. They're taking on San Diego State. Southern Miss is playing William Carey. That game is active. And Georgia Tech is hosting Georgia Southern. I'm not going to tell you what the score is, and I hopefully don't. Well, I don't want sound. All right, I get those. Try to go to the box score, and they're going to play a video automatically. So I didn't want that to come on. So it is a good basketball game. I can say that. All right, we'll see if we can stall here for a little bit. Maybe not. All right. Well, yeah, we did. All right. So final, Georgia Tech does hang on to defeat Georgia Southern 68-66. Georgia Southern led at half 37-36. Let's see if we got a box score here for Georgia Southern. Alden Applewhite 11 points and Tyron Moore had 10. Off the bench though, Nakavian White had 5 and Kari Dunn had 13. So a little bit more balanced, but not enough scoring. Dwayne Williams, he started, but he's 0 for 4 in 9 minutes. Doesn't seem to be in foul trouble, but maybe not effective and didn't play much. But Georgia Southern kept it very close with Georgia Tech falling by 2. All right. We will do more of a preview for Thursday's episode. So we'll get into more about that and see if we get any more coaching movement. Again, let me know what you guys think. I don't think coaches are nearly as irreplaceable as everybody else does. All right. I know there's some better ones out there. And forgive my language. Sometimes it's a crapshoot. All right. Again, Napier didn't succeed at Florida because he didn't have a quarterback. Brian Kelly just couldn't protect his quarterback this year. It's amazing on how you lose your 2 all SEC tackles, pretty much. One playing for my Patriots, and you can't protect the quarterback. What a shock. In fact, I think maybe a whole new offensive line for LSU. You needed to invest some of that NIL money into your offensive line, and you didn't do that. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about coaches being irreplaceable, or is it irreplaceable or replaceable? Now I got to irreplaceable. I think I want to do irreplaceable because I don't think they are irreplaceable. I think they are mostly all replaceable. Now I got it. All right. It's been a long day. Well, it was a day off. It really wasn't that long. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. You've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day, part of the Locked On Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there. Really do appreciate all the support. We cleared 2,700 subscribers. So thank you so much. Keep those comments coming. We'll be back again on Thursday. Have a great Wednesday. We will talk to you then.